Welcome to My Home HQ podcast with Ray Fletcher. Leading the way in buying and selling homes, knowing the current housing market, updating your home without an extensive remodel, or how to stage your home for the perfect sale and more. Portland, Oregon real estate agent Ray Fletcher will bring his 20-plus years experience of real estate, home ownership, and selling homes to you in his bi-monthly podcast. This podcast will be your home headquarters for strategies to achieve success in your real estate investments. Now your host of the podcast, Terry Fletcher.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the My Home HQ podcast with Ray Fletcher. Our resident home and real estate expert, Portland, Oregon area realtor Ray Fletcher, is here today with me to chat about all things real estate. I'm your host, Terry Fletcher. Hello, Ray.
How are you?
I'm good, and happy belated anniversary. I know it just happened based on when this podcast airs. So 20 years. Awesome.
Yeah. Shocking.
Maybe for Lynn.
Yeah. Time just keeps going by no matter what we do with it.
It's weird because we just celebrated our 24th. And when you make certain milestones, you're just like, really? Yeah. We went that long? Same person? Right. Wow.
And
I still like you.
You kind of reminisce how you got to this point. And,
yeah, it's funny. Well, great. No, I'm glad we had staying power, apparently.
Yes. Yeah.
So our topic today actually goes into an interesting topic that I actually didn't know the acronym to start, but again, with my crazy obsession with home shows, I'm starting to hear the acronym ADU. And mostly I'm seeing it with value for homes with flippers, and they're looking for properties with, and I'm air quoting, ADUs. So what is that actually?
An ADU is an accessory dwelling unit.
Okay. Doesn't that just mean an add-on, or what is it really?
Yeah, basically it's a second living area in the home. And that technically could be anywhere. It could be detached, attached, in, out. I mean, it's literally just a second living area.
So you said detached or attached. So it
Yes.
can also be considered an ADU if it's part of the home?
Correct. So let's say you have a basement that you build out, and then you have a separate entry. So stairs down to it. All the windows have to be a certain height and size for people to be able to get out of. And then if you have all the amenities of a basically somewhere somebody could live separately, that's considered an ADU.
Okay. So now let's first talk about the one you mentioned, size a little bit, as far as windows. Does it have to have a separate entrance if you're going to call it an ADU for rental purposes?
Yes, you have to have a complete separation from the home to be considered that, or you're just renting out a bedroom in a house, and that's just renting a room, so to speak. But an actual dwelling unit is basically self-sufficient. It has a bathroom, somewhat of a kitchen. And really, it could even be a studio. You don't have to have a bedroom and all that stuff. You just have to have enough amenities to where somebody could live there. It even could be a sink and a hot plate. You don't have to go too far out to be considered an ADU. You just have to have a bathroom, some sort of makeshift kitchen, and a place to exist.
I think what's interesting about it is that I know to call a bedroom in real estate, a bedroom has to have a closet.
Correct.
So this doesn't have to have a closet, just a hot plate, but
right. Yeah, that's an interesting point actually, because downtown Portland and most downtown major cities, you have these loft apartments or studio apartments, and some of those do not have closets. You bring your own armoire or some sort of wall system, and that's your closet. So, and they get away with whatever they want. There's 250 square foot studio apartments in downtown Portland. You walk in, you're like, okay, I'm in the bathroom. Now I'm everywhere right now. I'm in the kitchen, I'm in the living room, I'm in the bedroom, I'm everywhere. And you're just looking at it going, this is bizarre. But for the certain type of person that just doesn't stay home, it works.
Yeah. And for somebody who's tidy, I would imagine.
Yes. Yeah. Not a pack rat.
Yeah. No, definitely. Now, you mentioned something, or I mentioned about having a separate entry from the homeowners. Does it have to include parking?
Not necessarily. You can have street parking. If you don't have any parking, no, it's not a requirement. Parking is not.
Okay. And I'm assuming there's going to be state to state differences. I see all kinds of weird stuff down here in California because we're just weird.
Yeah.
But in Oregon, are there specific things where they say they have to be a certain size or?
Nope, there's not a lot of regulations on ADUs. We even have, so what we're doing here in Oregon is kind of almost as a whole is they're trying to fill all the gaps. So downtown, well, not downtown, but in some of these more condensed areas, they're allowing these ADUs to be put on people's homes. So also a tiny home is considered an ADU, and I guarantee you've watched tiny homes on home shows, and they are small. Some of them, you walk in, it's a trailer, so to speak, and then there's a loft, some sort of bathroom, a little living area, and a kitchen.
I don't get small homes or tiny homes. I don't
Yep.
get it, especially people who bring pets in there.
Yeah, pets, and some of them have 2 kids, and you're just like, what are we doing? So
I know.
yeah, and so even these tiny homes could be set in the backyard, on the side of the house. And now you have an ADU, and you have the ability to get rental income. And that zoning used to be extremely difficult to get that done. And now it's borderline streamlined.
But isn't it, don't they have to also take into consideration things like, where waste goes and electricity and all those hookups?
Yeah, you do have to be plugged into the systems, the city systems, and most of that isn't as difficult as it may sound. Just basically because your home is connected to the city water, sewer, and electric. Electric, it's pretty simple. It's basically like hooking up a hot tub. The sewer, that's definitely more involved, and you'd have to find out where your cleanouts are, and you just attach it to your sewer system. And then as far as water goes, I mean, I'll be honest with you, some of these people probably just hook up a hose.
Oh, no. And that's allowed in some areas because there's no real tough regulations. Wow.
Well, again, a lot of this is just do it and ask for forgiveness later if you get caught. But
Man.
you're only dealing with this tiny home to where you have a toilet, a shower, and a sink. Most of them probably, and again, they do and don't have washers, laundry services because they're too small. So, I mean, it's kind of all across the board on the options. I mean, and if you even think about it, you could convert your garage to an ADU.
Well, I was just going to ask you about that. So here's a question. And again, this is for your realtor experience.
Yep.
One thing that I would think would add value to a home is to have a home that doesn't just have a covered parking space, but has an actual garage.
Yeah.
Once you take that value away and convert that garage into some kind of an ADU, and that dwelling, doesn't that take value away from the home, even though it could give you some rental income?
It could. It just depends on the home, the location of the home, and kind of, I mean, where's the value at? Now you have a home that if this is an investment property, it just built value because now you have 2 rentals instead of just 1. Now, the 1 rental is definitely smaller, but if let's say you're getting $1,500 for the 1 main home and it had a garage, you get rid of the garage. Now you're only getting $1,200, but you're probably going to get $700 for the garage.
As an ADU. Okay.
And as an ADU, instead of the $200 difference or $300 difference that you're losing because you converted it. Now, if it's your primary residence and this is where you live, well, now you just have to decide what's the value to you. Do you want to just bring in an extra $1,000 a month because you converted your garage, or $700 or whatever that number is? Yes. If the answer is yes, then yes. But if the answer is, well, now I'm a landlord as well. Not only am I a landlord, my tenant lives basically with me.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different factors because most people who have rentals have a property, which is one of our past podcasts here. They have property managers for a reason. So they don't have to get involved and hear the stories of why I can't pay my rent and things like that. As we all know, I got into the storage business and I hear stories why people can't afford their $75 a month now.
Wow.
And that's a whole nother thing. So property managers, but I'm technically a property manager, and that story, yes, I listen to it. Yes, it's valid. And I do everything I can to help prolong, extend those type of things. Cause I mean, again, they're buying storage, and I do feel bad if they can't afford $75 a month, but there does come a time where it's like, sorry, it's time to go. When you're in your home and these people have these excuses now, you don't want to be the one to throw them out on the street. It's nice to have a property manager go through that process and figure out why they're not paying. So that's
Well, and
another factor of an ADU you got to think about.
well, and there used to be issues with, people leaving their home when there was a pandemic. That no longer applies. So you
Yeah.
actually can, if people aren't paying, you can say time to go.
Well, it's still pretty strict.
Is it pretty strict still? Here in California, it's lightened up a little bit, but there's still some things that they left in place. But you brought up a point about the garage, about conversion, and I think also, people bought a house that has some land with an ADU and they want to add one.
Yep.
Do you recommend? Well, let me rephrase.
Yeah.
Do you recommend instead of just assume you do? Do you
Yeah.
recommend that they get professionals to do that so they know what the permits are and all kinds of things? Otherwise, you've got people, with a garage basically putting a bed in there, and that's probably not a good idea.
Yeah, I 100% recommend going through the process, getting it permitted, making sure it's all on the up and up, because when you do decide to sell your home, it's going to come up. Now, yes, you, as we all know, because of past podcasts, you can sell your house with things that aren't permitted, but it is a buyer beware. And if the market gets even more strict as it is now, not strict, but a little more difficult for sellers as it is now, those type of factors, is your home going to be scrutinized and will eventually, you have to fix those things or retro do it. If you have to sell your house and you can't because all the buyers are just super scared of the work you've had done, then that's going to cost you. And the permit process, it's all there for a reason. Contractors are there for a reason. And just do your due diligence on that. Make sure you're doing it correctly. And the most important part is, if you did something wrong, and let's say there was a leak, now you're dealing with the tenant's property. You're flooding out their stuff. And so you really want to make sure everything you're doing is for you're not doing it just for you. You're doing it for your potential client, which is your tenant.
Right. Right. And it's funny because whenever I see unpermitted spaces, it's usually on that one show I was rewatching, actually, Flip or Flop.
Yeah.
Where they go in and buy some houses unseen to flip them. And I would say 80% were not permitted. People just, like you said, they, apologize later, do it now, and then they sell it sight unseen. And some of the things that they tried to put, to me, unpermitted is Band-Aids. They put something together where they said, oh, this should be fine.
Correct.
Instead of really looking at it.
And the homeowner did the Band-Aid. And all they have to do is just go back to bed.
Right. I know, exactly. Yeah, but you definitely. So if you're going to be and again, I'm air quoting, in the business of now becoming kind of a property manager, like you said, with an ADU, especially if it's a separate dwelling, you probably need to, you should do it right. Make sure it's got everything done right and that it can't come back to bite you on the back end. Yeah. So the question now comes up, and actually, it's just something that a lot of my friends that have, some land behind their house and they're just looking for some extra income, and they're not interested in the market right now because of the high interest rates. And they're saying, I just got approval to add an ADU behind my house. And they also have to have insurance considerations, right? First of all, I wouldn't have anybody rent for me that didn't have renter's insurance, but doesn't it add to your homeowner's insurance as well?
Yeah, you definitely want to run it through your homeowner policy, talk to your agent. Once again, they should be a partner in everything you do to keep you safe and secured and protected from, if somebody fell while they're renting your place, there's a potential lawsuit. So you got to talk about umbrella lawsuits. And then also, on another note, if your ADU is something, let's say you buy a little container, the new container homes. Now it's unusual, it's inviting, and maybe it's now an Airbnb type unit. And that is a whole new zoning criteria that has to be looked into. And then plus that has to be looked into with your insurance as well. So a couple things. Yeah, always run it by your insurance agent, and then give them scenarios that how you may use this place. And then also let them know that, if we get tired of it, we'll let you know, and we'll drop that portion of it, because now it'll just be a guest house or home office.
That's interesting that you said that, because I didn't even think about the Airbnb, because I don't stay at those, but I know lots of people use those types of things.
For sure.
And there's even cities I know out there, mostly New York, but where they don't allow it in some places, mostly like, they have doormen and what do they call them? Like the walk-ups and stuff like that. But
Yeah, our coastline. So let's say you're looking at certain like condos in a building, they put laws that no VRBOs, no Airbnb, no nightly rentals allowed.
oh,
And
wow.
and those properties actually they sit a little longer because most people want to again another investment opportunity at the beach, and they're like, well, now what? So yeah, that's a big factor, and that portion of it's very important if that's what you're going to do. Now, it's not again in the suburbs. It's you can most likely do it, but now you got to factor in if I'm in the suburbs, why would somebody need my place as a nightly stay? Where are they going?
Yeah,
There's
right.
nothing around here that's attractive for them to need the place for. Like we stayed at one in Napa once. It was amazing. It was basically in somebody's makeshift vineyard, not a legit commercial vineyard, but they had grapes, they had their main house, and we were in this little back ADU, and it was incredible.
Oh, nice. So, question, what if family uses it, is it still an ADU or is it just a guest house
Well, it's still the same thing. And I think the ADU is just a matter of if there's a full-time resident there.
that somebody you're charging?
Well, I mean, no, you can have your in-laws there.
Oh, okay.
They're living in your ADU. It's still
Okay.
the same thing. It's just a formality on what you want to call it.
Oh, okay.
It's always going to be called what it is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say that you were looking for a property. So put
Yeah.
yourself in a buyer situation. And what are I would say the top 5 pros and top 5 cons of finding a place that already has an existing potential ADU that could be fixed up on the property?
Yeah. So my number one thing, even if it's not a criteria to get one, would be parking, because you want it convenient for my tenant, and the parking is not obstructing the parking I need for my house. So if you have 3 cars, you need parking for 3 people. And if the ADU, so now with this ADU, I need parking for 4. So that's the number. That's one thing. And then secondly is how separate is it from the primary residence? Is this an on-site? Is it a basement ADU? Did they convert the garage? Those type of factors. And now what are you willing to live with? And then third for me would be, is it permitted? Is it done right? Is there any records of this? And how old is it? I mean, again, am I redoing it? Do I have to get my own contractor out there and get it done? A lot of these ADUs we are seeing are still rented. And so you're looking at the primary residence with the ADU still rented, and that lease goes with the house.
Okay.
So those are some things to think about. And then now you're dealing with, let's say you wanted it for an in-law quarter, not for income, or you're getting income from the in-laws because now you're taking care of them, to where now you have to go through the process of evicting because now you're a landlord.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of different interesting factors.
So that starts with the cons. What are the cons? Well, number 1 would be you're now a landlord.
Yeah. I mean, the pros are you have extra income. I mean, that's a huge deal. The place should technically always be rented. Another pro is your house. I do think there's value in it if it doesn't obstruct from the main home. That's really the key.
And people, if they have kids, they should do their due diligence to research the person that's going to be there, right?
Yeah, for sure. You're still going to do your background checks. And I mean, nowadays, your background check could just be Facebook.
Yeah.
You're going to see everything you know about this person with Facebook and Instagram.
What are they posting? Yeah.
Oh,
exactly.
man. There's a scenario. Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So give me a couple of cons beside the thing that you might have to evict if you're using it for other purposes.
Yeah. So another con would be, I mean, if the thing has any issues with it, now you're dealing with that renter. Like if the siding or it has a leak, I mean, you are now a property manager. And if you have a property manager that you're using, well, most people that have property managers have multiple units. That's why I use one. You should be able to self-manage your own unit. And so, I mean, again, that would be the only con is now you have to have your vendors and subcontractors in line to help do repairs, unless you're good at it yourself. But like we talked about, don't just do Band-Aids.
Right.
So some cons, property management. If you never wanted to be a landlord, you are now. And maintenance of the structure.
Oh, yeah, right.
And those are basically, for me, would only be the cons. The pros, I mean, it's income, it's more square footage of your home, and it's so versatile. I mean, there's so many different things you can do with it.
Right. Cool. Well, it's kind of interesting because it's funny how I see so many people looking to flip homes that are looking for ADUs. Not necessarily people are using it as their primary residence, but I could be wrong, and maybe it's just a different area. But it seems like that's a lot of value for people who are saying, well, I want to flip it, but I also want to make sure I offer it. They're actually using that instead of like putting in a pool or fixing up the backyard. I saw one that was having an architect. It just seemed a cheaper option for $500, give them plans on what it could be. And they put it in the house during the open house and said, you've got a blank slate here. Look what you could do. And a lot of people were like, when they went out to the backyard, they're thinking, wow, this is really nondescript. And then they saw the plans and went, oh, I didn't even think of that. So
yeah, and I think the home shows, I think it's just a trend right now. Just the term ADU is like the latest and greatest trend.
I know.
So with that said, they're trying to find content that they can promote. I mean, that's really what it is. And again, the homes they're selling, I think what they're probably the angle they're going for is extra income. And based on the market, I mean, you can use an ADU to qualify for your loan.
Really?
Well, it's going to have income.
Oh, right.
So if that's your plan, and if there's somebody already in it, now you can't use all of it, but you get to use a percentage of that rent that they pay you as part of the income to qualify for the loan. So let's say you're looking at a house that's $500,000, but if there's an ADU on it, I mean, again, it's still $500,000, but now it has $1,000 a month of income. I mean, again, that offsets some things. I've always wanted, and I've tried with your daughter, my nephews, and nobody's biting on it. Please, your first home, buy a duplex, live in one side for just a year.
Yeah.
2 years, whatever, just very minimal. And then go buy your next primary residence that you're going to live in, because now you have an asset. You're going to make the payments on it. You're going to find a way. And it's just, again, no one's taking me up on it, but they need to.
You're like, listen to the people.
Again, your daughter would have a duplex and her house.
Yeah.
Or she'd be
I think the one thing that
duplex,
I think the one thing that she lucked out on is the fact that when she got her house in December of 2021, she got a 2.99 interest rate.
Oh, I know. And that interest rate would have been on the duplex as well. That would have, anyway, it's fine. I'm just saying that this is the
hindsight. Hindsight.
That's the true way to build your real estate portfolio, your first home. You get all the first time home buyer things. You can do an FHA loan, so a little bit down. You don't have to put down 25%. I mean, all these things, because it's your primary residence, that make it make sense. And now if you can do an ADU instead of a duplex, well, maybe that mindset might be a little better for the generation that just wants their own space and don't bother me.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Ray, this has been a good episode. I didn't even think about the qualifying loan. I mean, people need to think about that, so for those listeners out there, with the interest rates the way they are, with what they're asking you to put down now, if you're trying to qualify for that loan and you could have 2 years ago, but now you're struggling, maybe consider the ADU option.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, great. So that's all for us this week on My Home HQ podcast. Join us next time when we bring you more topics on real estate, home buying, selling, investing, and more. Drop us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Make it a great rest of your month, and thank you for listening to the My Home HQ podcast with Ray Fletcher.
Thank you for listening to My Home HQ podcast with Ray Fletcher. Drop us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website and blog at www.rayfletcher.biz or contact Ray directly at realtorrayf@gmail.com to also subscribe to his weekly newsletter.